Peace be upon all of you, and thank you very much for coming to this book launch. I always feel generally very uncomfortable in talking about anything in public. One is, although I give lectures and such things, when the spotlight is on a name, on editor, often what happens is that the work itself gets dissolved. And that's what I want to speak about. I want to talk about the actual work of this book. I'm thankful to God that I had the opportunity to do this. And really, the work itself, as Sajjad has hinted, is very unique, because the work on Samarra in Iraq, there's hardly any literature on it. So in a way, this represents the first of its kind, actually. And I would like to take this moment to thank all the dear contributors for their hard work. Some of them are sitting here, some of them are abroad. Qamar Abbas, who has gladly joined us all the way from Chelmsford, he contributed a chapter, as well as his experience of the ziyarat. I have Amal Imad, she did a chapter on citizenship and identity. Fadhil Bahrululoom contributed a chapter, Sajjad Jihad as well. So you have a whole host of contributors, and many are actually in America as well, and they couldn't be here. But in saying that, I actually want to read out to who this book is dedicated, if I can get to it. This is who the book is dedicated to. To all those who lost their lives due to the rage of others and never got an opportunity to express their talents for the prosperity of humanity. May God bless the languages and colors that never were. It's for all those who are oppressed. Doesn't matter what background you're from. Often today we make distinctions and we have superiorities between cultures, whether Iraqi, Irani, Pakistani and others. Whereas this book is a culmination, or shows that these distinctions do not matter when it comes to heritage, turath, which is actually destroyed. And I had the opportunity of visiting Samarra recently, in December actually. And as some of you are aware, the key shrine there, which is of the 10th, 11th and 12th Imam, peace be upon them, that shrine was actually blown up in 2006 and 2007. In fact, the actual commemoration date is February 22nd. So it's about a week ago, where the shrine was first bombed, and another bomb happened in 2007. And thankfully, the actual shrine where usually Shia Muslims go and say salam or peace to the Imam, that shrine is actually rebuilt now. So when you actually go inside and you want to touch the shrine, or you want to pray namaz or salah, for example, it's a very nice area. But outside, in terms of the minarets and the other parts of the actual compound, they are still under reconstruction. And that shows that even approximately 6 years on, this shrine and the courtyard and everything is not built. Now, why do I say this? Well, often if you look at academic books on politics or Middle East, even if you look at the media, the focus generally tends to be on disturbance and Arab Spring and political situations, whereas actually the reality of it is, why are these people oppressed? What is it that's so important about the region? Okay, London is important because, etc., this university exists and that university exists. Why is Samarra important? One of the reasons why it is important is the shrine itself. People are attached to this shrine and have been for many, many centuries. They're attached because this shrine is almost the center of the city. The fact that the imams, especially which the Shia Muslims believe in, are there. And that is an important focal point for community development, for uniting a community, for giving religious identity. This is a huge thing. Now, how often is that reported? Do we have books about that? Does the media actually report anything about that? And that is actually why, when you talk about politics, all these things, it's based first of all on identity and formulation of identity. And I want to just show you something actually. And I think it's really difficult to get these things in the book, and I think IB Tauris gladly agreed to include these things. If I can just get to it. I don't know if you could hold this, sorry. Sorry. I just wanted to show that. Okay. I just wanted to show you something. At the back of the book, which is in the appendix, you'll find the ziyarat of each imam there. Now, this isn't just some kind of symbolic religious thing. There's a reason for it. The Arabic as well as the English, which is there, is to show people why Muslims, or any person for that matter, it doesn't matter whether you're Muslim or not, why people have an attachment to a holy figure, to a religion, or to a region. Why is it that this region or country is important? This is not often looked at. And in the book, you'll often find when you browse through it, that there are pictures of the demolished shrine, and there are 4 pages of actually a student's writings of a great teacher, Mirza Shirazi, his actual notes on the science of jurisprudence there, is to give people a feel of what the city is about, things which are not generally talked about. And this is in order to change the discourse on the Middle East. And not just Middle East, to change the discourse generally in Islamic studies. Islamic studies is often compartmentalized. Either you have history, either you have politics, either you have jurisprudence, etc. Often these things are not combined. And more so, it's very difficult, and I've gone through this arduous process, so I know that when you want to combine religious material, like the one I showed, with so-called academic material, whatever that means, when you want to combine the two, people will always raise eyebrows, always. Because there's a sense, well, you can't include spiritual material. Why? I don't understand it. That is part of the heritage of a people. Now, if you're writing, I don't know, as I said about London, you're writing about cafes and universities, that would be the heritage, or Beatles, or whatever it is, that would be the heritage of a city. And in tandem, that is the heritage of a city. And that essentially is what the book is about. So I'd just like to end in the next 1-2 minutes by again thanking all the contributors, thanking God for this great opportunity, and I do hope that the work speaks for itself, and that I hope you enjoy reading the book. Thank you very much for listening.
Special thanks to Mr. Panjwani. As I would like to welcome you all in our book launch regarding the first conference which we held a few years ago about the Shi'a in Samarra. It has been held here in Brunei Gallery. The program, at that time we had few speakers. Everyone, I think, had his own article and part of or chapter in the book. And as Imran, I think he mentioned and he explained, and he probably can explain better about the book than me as he is the editor. I think he did a lot, and that what makes the book special. I'm delighted that we managed to publish the book, and I'm especially delighted that we managed to do it with IB Tauris. Special thanks to Mr. Iraj Bakirzadeh, who I think he said that he's going to come, but he's not here. And I hope that this is going to be the beginning of series of kind of working together. More books, inshallah, will be issued in the in the near future. And the book itself, as we all see, I mean, it, as Sajjad also explained, it represents a kind of series of work which lasted for 4 years. And alhamdulillah, thank God that we managed to finish it within the required time. And I'm so happy that we managed to have the program today within the month of February, because we tried to keep the as it coincides with the 6th anniversary, I think, of the bombing of the Holy Shrine in 2006-2007. And as my colleagues mentioned, the Shrine of Samarra is extremely important for the follower of Al-Bayt, for the Imami, as it contains the grave of the 10th and the 11th Imam and their relatives. Plus, it represents the house of the present Imam, the 12th Imam, because there is something very special behind the shrine of Samarra. The only holy shrine, which is like the actual residence of the Imams, is Samarra, and is the residence of the 12th Imam, is the house of the 12th Imam. Now, Alhamdulillah, they start building the shrine, and I don't know, probably Brother Imran knows more about it because he was there on December, but I was there also last year. I went there twice. The building, the construction projects, Alhamdulillah, we're going through, but it's a bit slow, but at least we are there somewhere. And I hope that inshallah in the future, oh yeah, there we are, we have Sir Bakr Zada. I was mentioning your name and the thanks, so I would like to repeat the special thanks to Iraj for his contribution or help for the book, and for all the team, the CISS team, Imran, Sajjad, everyone. I think everyone did his best, and everyone tried his best, and that's why, Alhamdulillah, we end up having a nice full kind of work, which I think will be beneficial for the not only for the followers of Al-Bayt, but for everyone who is looking for kind of facts about Samarra, the shrines, the followers of the Imamis in that area, the history of the followers of the Imami in that area. As Brother Imran mentioned, there is little has been written about Samarra and about the Shi'a of Samarra, not only in English, even in Arabic. Alhamdulillah, we managed through this book, especially the chapter by Sajjad, and I'm sure Imran did his bit as well. We managed to prove through independent sources that Shia were there, living there around 50 to 70 years before the migration of Mirza Shirazi. And I think from what I remember, J.F. Jones in his book Voyage to the North of Baghdad in 1846, he mentioned that around quarter or one-third of the population of Samarra were Shia Imamis. The question is, what happened to those and where are they at the moment? For 100, took them 180 years to nearly disappear, because they were only few thousand till 30 years ago, and I think hardly we can find any more now. So, not only that, the town, and also in the book has been mentioned that the town has been built by the Imamis, and most of it is been endowed by the Imamis, as the first fence being built by the Indian donors, and the first school has been built by, Iranian donors, etc., and all of it has been documented there. So I think as we all try, as Imran says when he talk about to whom this book has been, we all asking, we're not asking for disagreements or kind of tension or whatever, but I think there are people there who used to live there, lost their rights, lost their properties. So there should be a call for this kind of thing, and also we would like everyone who lost whatever anywhere around the world to get back to his residence, to get his right back. It's not only for the Shia, not only for the Shia in Samarra, but for any kind of human being anywhere around the world. But as we are writing the book about the Shi'a of Samarra and about their presence, so we try to highlight this issue. Finally, I also would like to mention that Samarra always becomes it's special, and it makes it more special as every year we had tens of thousands, if not more, 100,000 actually, of Shia pilgrimage. Nowadays are reaching millions, and that's what make the town totally kind of the economy of the town relying on the visitors and the pilgrims of the holy shrines. Thus, these kind of reasons make the presence of the Shia special and important in Samarra, and I think we request further studies for the kind of about the Shia and Samarra, or about Samarra in general, about the architecture of the holy shrines. As Brother Imran mentioned, there is a lack of such studies, and we need more and more, and I hope that this book will represent the beginning of kind of work issued by researchers regarding that matter. And I would also like to ask whoever can contribute, whether in writing, in editing, to help us and to take part in our Center for Islamic Shia Studies, as we hope that all researchers, all workers in that matter can work together, as I'm sure we can do things better if we are together sharing benefits and opinions and the kind of information from each other. Special thanks to everyone who helped and attend, and special thanks to the contributors, and to Dr. Andrew Newman, who comes all the way from Edinburgh to take part of this program. And I'm going to pause the speech. Thank you all. Thank you.
Well, it is a great pleasure to have been asked to come down, right? Is that better? Right? To have come down from Edinburgh to speak at the official launching of this very important volume, the final product of a fascinating conference in Samarra that was held, as I recall, in this very same building downstairs back on the 19th of February in 2009. And here we are 3 years on, and this book has, in fact, been available for some time now. So the speedy appearance of this very fine volume is a testament to the organizing skills of the Center for Islamic Shi'a Studies and its director, and also to its dedicated staff, most especially the very capable editor and the publishers, of course, as well as the contributors who managed to get all this done in a very short period of time. I've edited a volume myself, and I don't think I'll ever do it again because it's such a process, but I think they've done extremely well to get it out in such a timely fashion. The February 2009 conference was held, yes, nearly 6 years after the commencement of the invasion of Iraq and the subsequent toppling of Saddam Hussein. And the February 2009 conference was almost exactly 3 years after the 22nd February 2006 bombing that destroyed the main dome of the shrine in Samarra. And I very vividly remember the before and after pictures of the shrine and that dome that quickly circulated worldwide, and I'm quite certain that I'm not alone in that memory. And the before picture is, in fact, here with us tonight on the cover of the volume. And that picture is, and I think this is rightly mentioned on the dust jacket in the book, representative or at least symbolic of the tensions that have obtained in Iraq in the years following the invasion. But those tensions were actually, of course, there before as well. And being a historian and being also delighted with the scale and the scholarly nature of the contributions here, I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of Samarra and also then use this as a vehicle to discuss some of the very important scholarly contributions in the volume. Of course, Islamic period Samarra dates from about 836 or 221, from when the Abbasids moved the capital from Baghdad to a pre-Islamic site there, owing to very widespread unrest in the capital. The city remained the Abbasid capital for about 60 years or so until about 892, when it was relocated back to Baghdad. In those years, the city became an important commercial venue. Also, however, in the years 849 to 852, the wonderfully great congregational mosque with its famous spiral minaret was built. And the original part of the city was simply called the military camp, and hence its people were later called Askaris or Askariyun. It was from this term that the 11th Imam, who was born before the designation of the city as capital, took his nisbah. He was in his 20s when in approximately 848 or 849, about 10 years before the city became capital, his father, the 10th Imam, was ordered to come to Samarra. Imam Ali bin Muhammad died in 868, some 20 years after being forced to come to the city. It was in these later years that his son Imam Hassan was persecuted by the Abbasid authorities, much more so than his father had been, and he fell ill, and in 873 or 4, only some 6 years after his own father had died, he himself passed away. And very soon after his father's death, Hassan al-Askari's son Muhammad, the 12th Imam himself, commenced his occultation. As for the city itself, for a time it flourished and indeed expanded. But after more time, it also became clear it was not suitable as the Abbasid capital, and also the politics of Baghdad itself gradually evolved. And the combination of these factors meant that in 892, nearly 60 years after its designation as capital, Samarra lost that status. The exact details of what happened to the city are not so clear, except that the population began to move away, houses were abandoned, and the city shrank. The imams were buried in the house itself, either underneath the floor or else in the courtyard, as were the two brothers of Imam Ali, as were the sister of Imam Ali al-Hadi and the wife of the 11th Imam himself. The Shia Hamdanids first took some measures to set aside the enclosure as a special site. This was in the 940s. And in the later 940s, the Buyids arranged for salaries to be paid to those who were in attendance at the shrine. A dome was built over the tombs, and a teak sanduq was constructed. Some 3 decades later, in the 970s, teakwood was used to embellish the ralda, porticos were erected, and an enclosure wall was also reinforced. Further work was done on the shrine. It was undertaken in 1053, 2 years before the Seljuks captured Baghdad, and even some 50 years later in 1101, 1102 by the Seljuks themselves. In the early 1200s, some 4 decades before the arrival of the Mongols in 1258, the Abbasid Caliph himself had erected the Dome of Al-Ghaiba. After a fire in the 1240s, the Caliph himself also undertook some restoration work. This interest in, respect for, and indeed veneration of the site by non-Shi'i rulers continued apace after the events of 1258, which it survived. In the late 1340s, the Jalayirids commanded that work be done on the shrine. The tomb was decorated, and the dome and minarets were also restored, and the terrace was strengthened. But importantly, commensurate with this official interest in the site, also went popular interest in the site and in its venerations. And indeed, from the 10th century Kamal al-Ziyarat, it is clear that ziyarah to the site was considered to be meritorious. With the arrival of the Safavids on the scene, the first Safavid Shah Ismail I in 1508 and 09 supplied 2 new boxes for the tombs, but it was the second Safavid Shah Tahmasp who undertook quite major work. The tombs were redecorated, and the dome and the al-Raqqa were rebuilt. In 1623-24, his grandson, Abbas I, just after he took back Baghdad and the shrine cities from the Ottomans, who had held the area since 1534, Shah Abbas I rebuilt the tomb of Imam Ali and also repaired the dome in the courtyard. In 1694, however, the sanctuary again caught fire, and Shah Sultan Hussein, the last Safavid Shah, had the floors paved with marble, ordered the building of 4 ornamented wooden boxes and a steel cage to go around the cenotaph. During the very long years that followed, attention to the shrine was paid by the Shi'i Kurdish governor of Azerbaijan and his son. In 1785-86, the former Ahmed bin Murtaza Qali Khan of Dunbuli, bespeaking a connection to the Dunbuli tribe, rebuilt the walls of the Sahn and the staircase descending to the Serdaba Mahdi. He also added a khan, a bathhouse, and a new mosque to the city itself. And in 1810, his own son Hussein covered the dome of Al-Ghaiba with tiles. The former additions certainly do suggest that the shrine was fast becoming an increasingly site for Shi'i pilgrims, and that the city's existing facilities were insufficient to accommodate them. In the 19th century, more work took place. A bequest from the Shi'i ruler of Oud, or Awad, Ahmad Amjad Shah, who died in 1847, in 1842 allowed the building of new fortifications to the city. These and other improvements attest also to the site as attracting even greater attention. Khans were built outside the city to allow pilgrims from Baghdad an overnight halt. Finally, in 1869, the Qajars make an appearance on the scene. Nasr ad-Din Shah repaved much of the shrine and also replaced the steel cage of the cenotaph with a gold one. He also covered the dome and minarets with 72,000 gold-plated bronze tiles and installed mirror mosaics for the walls and the ceilings. Muhammad Hassan al-Shirazi, when he came from Najaf to the city, installed a clock tower and equipped it with a clock. A madrasa was also built together with houses, baths, and markets in this period. The 20th century also witnessed much work and some improvements. These included piped water and electricity. The 1920s witnessed the extensive embellishments of decorations, curtains, a silver door, marble steps for the sirdab, carpets for the rauda, a silver gate for the arcades, and the sanctuary. In 1941, a new grille was pasted around the cenotaph from Karbala. In 1948-49, a pillared veranda was added and another was constructed in 1960-61 at the Ghaibat al-Mahdi. In the early 1960s, new gold boxes replaced the wooden boxes, and there were also 3 gold gates constructed with glass thanks to donors from Iran, Iraq, and Kuwait. In about 1966, the sign around the tombs was extended. In 79, a new silver cage decorated with pieces of gold was placed around the cenotaph, and in the 1980s, again, the sign areas further extended to make a single courtyard, and a street was built around the back. Now, you're going to forgive me for going on about the history of embellishments to the shrine. I'm a historian at heart. But given the events of 2006, I think there is a special sense I feel to make sure that the history is recorded and known. And I confess to borrowing all of this material from Alistair Northridge's excellent chapter, which is replete with pictures, including satellite images and maps and plans as well. Years ago also, as I began to get material together to mount a website to go with my Shi'i news email list, I found on the web some wonderful pictures of the shrine. And these allow us to make sure that the memories of what is past remain, as both the community and its many friends all look to the future. But this is not all this very valuable volume does. There are a further 8 chapters herein, and all of these repay a great deal of attention. The volume's editor opens the collection of essays herein with an important discussion which delineates the several themes of the volume. The city as a city itself, the Shia themselves, who they are, what they believe, and the lives of the 10th and 11th Imams, the development of Shi'i scholarship, and finally the city as an emblematic, a symbol of politics and heritage, as it were. He then goes beyond to address the lives and meanings of the lives of both Imams, that is to say, their own heritage. Following Alistair's excellent chapter, Osam Khaidan then takes us through the rebuilding process. And in doing so, he notes the legacies of the city and how these were reflected in the shrine itself, focusing first on the Christian wife of the Caliph al-Mutawakkil and the 10th Imam himself, and then the 2006 damage to the shrine and the continued importance and future of the shrine. And these papers make up the first part of the volume. The second part of the volume addresses the life and legacies of those religious figures associated with the city. And I'm delighted that Sayyid Khamar Abbas, who is here, very usefully reminds us of the political turmoil that faced the 10th and the 11th Imams in their own lifetimes, but also the very precariousness of their own personal situations. Their own legacies were threefold, he suggests. Despite the political and personal challenges, both taught and guided their followers. Both never gave up their claims to imama, and both stressed the unity of the entire ummah, and, despite the manner in which they were personally treated, never replied, as it were, in kind. My friend and colleague, Sayyid Fadhil Bahrululoom, the director of CISS, looks at Shi'i scholarship at the time of Mirza Hassan Shirazi and its legacy for the city. He first reviews the existing tendencies in Shi'i scholarship to that time, commencing in the period of the Lesser Occultation, and carrying us through the period when the Hausa relocated from Najaf to Najaf from El-Hilla and Karbala in modern times. He then enlightens us as to the life and contributions of Mirza Hassan himself up to and through his move to the city. And, usefully, he explores the reasons for this move and his role in the tobacco protest and the meaning of his life for future generations. Pascal Abador looks at the manner in which 2 modern Lebanese scholars, Sayyid Abdul Hussein Sharafuddin and Muhsin al-Amin, both of whom died in the 1950s, appreciated and interacted with the Hausa at Samarra and Najaf in the form of an examination of the impact of the legacy of Mirza Hassan Shirazi in the city on these Amali scholars and their own contributions to the community. The volume's third section addresses the realities of the city itself within wider Iraqi discourse. Peter Sluglet looks at the sectarianism in Iraq to argue that while it has been a feature of discourse in Iraq, it cannot be said to necessarily be a permanent feature, though these are mainly a phenomenon that has its roots in the Saddam period. It is rooted in the mediation of local issues within an imperial tradition as well, as he shows, and relocates Iraqi sectarianism to that found in Lebanon, but also to relates Iraqi sectarianism in that found in Lebanon, but also to post-Tito Yugoslavia. He also reviews Shi'i participation in the political processes of the 20th century and examines the impact of Arab nationalism on this discourse and the US role therein from its beginnings until the present. In the second essay in this section, Reader Weiser looks at northern Baghdadi Shia and the processes of sectarian coexistence in light of the experience of the Ottoman period, non-Arab Shia, and the events of 2003. The volume's final paper by Amal Ayyad explores issues of citizenship and identity in relation both to Samarra and Iraq more generally. Here we are very usefully reminded of differences between Iranian and Iraqi Shi'ism, but also covered herein are issues relating to the Shia and the Ba'ath Party and the manner in which the community interacted with the issue of Arab nationalism and also the 2003 invasion and its impact on Iraq and also especially on the city itself. Examined in this paper also is the practical impact of the 2006 bombing and the manner in which it greatly exacerbated sectarian tensions in the cities and challenged any sense of a broader national identity. There are useful appendices herein as well, 3 in fact. The first being some excerpts of the writing of Mirza Hassan Shirazi on Usul al-Fiqh as provided by his student, Ali Ruzadari, in 1873. The second is a very lengthy section on the traditions about ziyarah to the 10th, 11th Imams and the 12th Imam as well in the city, as compiled from Majlisi's Bahar al-Anwar. All of these are translated and as such form an invaluable resource for scholars and students of the faith and others who do not have access to these Arabic language materials. The third appendix comprises an account of a pilgrim to Samarra by Said Qamar, the author of one of the chapters herein, his own 2009 visit to the city when the dome was as yet not finally repaired. And this is a moving personal account, perhaps all the more so as he made the visit with his sons. I'll leave Professor Charles Tripp's prefatory remarks for the last here, because he usefully steps back a bit and looks at the forest, as it were, the larger backdrop through the trees, the hoped-for place of the city in contrast with Najaf, and why that dream did not immediately materialize. But he also reminds us of the concerns of the Shia in the city itself, a minority in the present, to be sure, in the world of Saddam's Iraq. In the context of Shi'i studies worldwide, the horrific event of the bombing of the shrine in 2006 has had the curious and possibly unsettling effect of stimulating interest in the city and its history. In the fast-paced world in which we live today, it does seem to take a tragedy to generate interest. But how can we maintain that interest beyond the famous 15 minutes of an event of fame or infamous event such as 2006? In such an age, the next tragedy is all too soon in coming and will displace our attention and move it someplace else. Well, it seems to me we begin to do that precisely by such efforts as the CISS organization of the 2009 conference and the appearance of this volume as concrete manifestations thereof, to change a terrible negative into something as a positive, as it were, and to begin to address for the medium and especially the long term the meaning and the process by which this tragedy will not be forgotten. And this really is what this volume is all about and what I do believe it will do. The center then is to be very greatly thanked for such foresight and such a longer term agenda as both the conference and the volume attest. For doing both, that is, not only for remembering, but for taking that extra step past remembering, for building on and encouraging us to learn from that memory. And it seems to me that both processes are both useful, and in fact both processes are absolutely necessary. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Andrew Newman, for that very engaging talk.
Yeah.
Thank you for our panelists for entertaining us today. Thank you all for being here. There are copies of the book available to purchase right outside. If you wish for any of the panelists to sign those copies, they'd be more than happy to do so. If you have any questions, we don't have an open Q&A session at the moment, but if you'd like to individually come up and speak to one of the panelists, then that's fine. And there's refreshments available, so please help yourselves. And thank you all for being here. Thank you.
Today, how comes you decided to personally write about this book from 4 years ago?
Well, we looked at all the amount of works in English on Shia Islam generally, and we found that there was very, very few out there. And then we looked at specifically the holy shrines, important cities, important bodies of knowledge, And we found Samarra had even less, maybe only one work in English on the city of Samarra and a few journal articles. So we decided that this place being the birthplace of Imam Hujjah Samarra alayhi, being his home, the place where he grew up, the place where his father was buried and his mother, it's something very symbolic for the Shia. And particularly after the events of 2006, we felt that there was not enough attention being given to the heritage of this city. So we put forward a plan to write a book on Samarra, and then this turned into a conference. And we've been blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to finally have something before us that has been published by a world-renowned publisher and distributed across various libraries in the world.
How much of a shock was the bombing in 2006 and 2007 to the Shia world for you to actually think more about Samarra generally?
Well, to put it into context, really the only times the shrines have been attacked over the last 200 years were one in early 1800s when Wahhabis from Saudi Arabia attacked the shrines, and that was in Najaf and Karbala. So a long, long time ago. And in 91, after the uprising by the Shia south of Iraq, the shrines specifically in Karbala and even in Najaf were damaged, but not in this way. So comparing it to what had happened over the past 200 years, no one was expecting anything like this. And the fact that this was somewhere that the Imams are not just for the Shia, the Imams are for all the Muslims. And forget the Imams themselves, let's talk about a shrine city, somewhere where people look to go for tourism, to discover, to learn about history and heritage. It's open for all the world. And then for it to be bombed in this way and to take away this heritage from the city was very traumatic.
Your piece is on heritage and culture. In summary, if you were to tell our viewers, what did your research find? Were the Shias before this time? As now we've seen in Samarra, there's hardly any Shias.
Yes, my research was mainly focused on saying, what is Samarra? Is it the city that the Abbasids lived in, or is it a different city? Which I showed is different. Then I looked at when were the first time Shia were there. And I showed that Shia have always been in Samarra, and Shia were the ones that built Samarra, and they were there before Mirza Shirazi, because there is an idea that there was no Shia until 1870s when Mirza Shirazi moved from Najaf to Samarra. This is not true. I have shown that there were Shia, and there were students, and there were scholars in Samarra before them. I relied on non-Shia sources, non-Muslim sources, some of them as well, to prove they went to visit Samarra in 1847, 1863, 1817. They went there and they said half the population of Samarra Shia. There is very busy movement of people around the shrine. There are lots of visitors all throughout. So then to say that Samarra became a Shia city only during Mirza Shirazi's time is not true. So I was able to prove that it has always been a Shia city. It was built on the barakah of the Imams and because people came to visit the Imams. Not that it was built by the governments or by the Abbasids or so on. It was built because of the ziyarah of the Imams.
As being you being part of this team that published this book, why would you recommend this book to viewers, not just Shias but non-Shias?
Well, first of all, the book is unique. As I said, there's not much work on Samarra to start with. So if you wanted to find anything on Samarra, this book should be on the top of your list. Two, the book is actually contributed more by non-Muslims than Muslims. So people who don't have an agenda, if we wanted to say that Shia are biased towards Samarra, these non-Muslims don't have this agenda. Three, the book approaches different aspects: political, history of Samarra, the heritage in terms of the community of people there, the scholars who live there, the actual shrine itself, the history of the movement of people through this area. This is, a multi-dimensional approach rather than just looking at purely the Imams.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I believe that CISS is playing a very central role in addressing the important issues that related to the Shi'a of Islam. And so I believe that these activities will display the image of the Shia and the identity of and the history of the Shia throughout the Muslim world. It has the potential to prolong the activities that run by the center, and I believe that with the cooperation of the Muslim the Shia Muslim and the Islamic world and the Islamic schools and the Shia centers, Iraq, Iran, and somewhere else, will provide the opportunity for the academic circles to understand, to better understand Shiaism in a different realm, and this will lead to the prolonging of the Islamic Shia, the Shia of Islam in the Islamic world. And this is the only thing I can.
Assalamu alaikum. I've come here to attend the book launch on the Shi'a of Samarra. For me, it's a very interesting evening. I have a great interest in the history of the shrines of the Ahlul Bayt and the Imams, and it was great to hear the three speakers here today with their different insights on this book. The book itself, which I've just now bought, is a very interesting book in terms of how it's been compiled, with various different chapters written by different people. For me especially, it's got some very interesting photographs in, some old pictures of the shrine, and talks about its evolution from the times of the Imam up to today. I myself have taken many photographs in Samarra over the years, and today have probably about 10,000 photographs of the various shrines of the Ahlul Bayt throughout the world, which is why this book to me is of great importance. Also because there's very little literature available in English these days on the Shi'as of Samarra and Samarra itself. There's hardly anything available on the internet. So this book itself is a great works and in a way a pioneer in that field.
Alhamdulillah, this book here, the Shi'a of Samarra, is I think, in my humble opinion, a very important contribution to the academic sources that we, the followers of Ahlul Bayt, and not just the followers of Ahlul Bayt, but anybody who would like to study and find out more about Shi'ism, especially the heritage of Shi'ism in a place like Samarra, and what's a holy site like Samarra, and of course the shrines there of the 10th and the 11th Imam, what it means to the followers of the Ahlul Bayt and their contribution to the society of that particular area, and of course the religious significance of it. So this is of course a very innovative book in terms of the contribution that it will make, first and foremost, and secondly the CISS, very importantly, is conducting a number of projects which will hopefully contribute, helpfully contribute a lot to the academic sources that the followers of Ahlul Bayt and many others alike will be able to use in the future for their research. So this is very exciting, this particular project, as will be many of the projects that will be taking place over the course of the next couple of years and going forward, and hopefully this will help to help other academics in this particular field when they are doing further research. They can use these works as a starting point for future projects, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I'm delighted that we, alhamdulillah, have the launch of the book Shi'a of Samarra, which coincide with the 6th anniversary of the first bombing of the Holy Shrine, as it was on the 20th of February in the year 2006. And alhamdulillah, we managed to, as few years later, we had our first conference, the CISS Center for Islam Shia Studies first conference, and alhamdulillah now we managed to publish the book by IB Tauris. Alhamdulillah, the book, the feedback we had very good, and it went very successful, as a lot of people attend the program, and from the kind of buyers seems like there's a lot of interest in the subject, of the Shia presence in Samarra. And alhamdulillah, as in this book we managed, I mean, the Center for Islamic Shia Studies managed to prove through independent sources that Shia population existed in Samarra since the year 1840, 1846. And this is around 30 to 40 years before the migration of Mirza Shirazi. As some people, they claim that the Shia presence was since the migration of Mirza Shirazi. It was him himself and his students. But in that book, we've proven that Shia existed long time ago there, as due to J. Jones in his book about the population North Baghdad. He stated that there are third or quarter of the population, I'm not sure because it's all there, a third or quarter of the population, in some stage they said third, in the other says quarter, are from the Shia Arabs. Hopefully that this will, this is the beginning of a few kind of work with IB Tauris. Other books, inshallah, in the future, in the near future, will be published. And hopefully we will have more programs regarding the presence of the follower of Al-Bayt, the Shia in the area, and their culture and tradition. Thank you.